Hello, my name is Nick Rouse, and this is my final project for ACC 564, Investigating with Computers. This presentation will include a lab setup for a digital forensic examiner, a sample case that involves digital forensics tools that are used during investigations, repairing graphic files and investigating them, and development of examiner guides. When setting up a digital forensics lab, you need to consider the employees you're going to be hiring. A lab manager and subordinates should be carefully selected based on qualifications. Facility cost is another big thing to consider. Some of those costs include lease prices, furniture, computers, software, etc. Something that can dictate the type of equipment you need is the type of investigations you will be conducting. There is also the case of how many investigations your company expects to be conducting. This factor alone could drastically change the cost, as more or less space, equipment, and employees may be needed. Other factors that could influence the cost are additional drives, backup systems, storage for evidence, advertising, and miscellaneous office supplies. The big question is, where is this money going to come from? In the case of M57, an employee has been suspected of stealing proprietary information from the company. During the original investigation, evidence involving a separate crime were uncovered. Joe is suspected in the new crime of possessing illegal images on his computer. However, his personal USB that was seized during the original investigation may not have been obtained with legal merit and therefore would not be admissible in the proprietary information case. All of the employees with access to proprietary information had their company computers and drives seized, which adequately covers the digital portion of the investigation. With the illegal imagery investigation, separate warrants will be needed to search Joe's drives for evidence connecting him to the case. As this investigation stands, there is enough evidence to obtain a warrant in the case, given that Joe was the previous owner of the terminal turned into police. In regard to the proprietary case, there did not appear to be enough evidence to obtain a warrant. However, the company appeared to be cooperating with law enforcement and a warrant was not required if the evidence is voluntarily turned over. Joe's personal USB drive was not company property and could not be voluntarily turned over by the company to the police. This USB would require a warrant unless Joe voluntarily turned it over for the investigation. If illegal images were found on it, admissibility under the plain view doctrine would be permitted, as it is a federally recognized exclusion to the Fourth Amendment, and the images in question are a part of a serious federal crime. The expansiveness of the case of the stolen data is justifiable, excluding the personal effects of the employees without a warrant. A company can turn over whatever asset they own to law enforcement voluntarily if they choose. In the illegal imagery case, provided they already had all the equipment, should they run across any evidence relating to their case, it would be admissible. And the sheer amount of hardware they have would open the opportunity for both cases to be completed simultaneously. In summation, the evidence collected include company terminals of all those involved with the proprietary data case and one personal USB. In the case of the illegal imagery, one additional terminal was collected and believed to be used by Joe. If the police wish to further investigate the case, they will need a warrant to obtain any additional hardware. The evidence provided in both cases are satisfactory to obtain a warrant since they are connected with the suspect. The evidence provided justified seizing the equipment necessary to conduct a full investigation. In choosing digital forensics software to aid in your investigations, it's important to make sure you're choosing the right one. Researching and weighing the pros and cons of several can help in this process. This is a list of common digital forensics software that does just that. Messages embedded in graphic files take two forms. They are done by either inserting a hidden message or replacing bits with representative bits known as substitution. Both of these techniques are a method called steganography, which is described as using a host file, i.e. a picture, to carry a message in the data that isn't easy to recognize by anyone outside the knowledge of its existence. In this case, there are 4 messages hidden within the data of graphic files given to us by an investigator. To check the data for insertion of the embedded messages, opening the file in a viewer and searching manually could uncover the message, but may be time-consuming, depending on skill level. Searching for duplicate files would also aid in uncovering messages, as the two files may contain different hash values, further aided if the original is on hand. If these methods are not feasible, there is a steg analysis tool such as Steg Suite that can help identify the data hidden within the image. These tools can aid in both insertion and substitution. Substitution can either be very noticeable or virtually unnoticeable. When changing the bits in an image, there are most significant bits, or MSBs, and there are least significant bits, or LSBs. These bits are prioritized from left to right, therefore changing bits on the left, or the MSB, will result in more drastic shade changes of a pixel, ultimately leaving a clue. By changing the LSBs, the ones furthest on the right, there's less of a change done, and the pixel would leave less hints as to what was changed. If this is the case, a comparison to the original file or steg analysis tool must be used to identify the change. Since there are multiple ways to uncover these hidden messages, especially if it's already known that they exist, going with a steg analysis tool is the most efficient way in going about this case. In this case, the steps would be as follows. 1. Download and install StegoHunt, an updated version of Steg Suite, from whetstoneTech.com. 2. Create a directory with the graphic files in it. 3. Open StegoHunt and click Add Directory and select the one that was just created. 4. Click Scan Programs. 5. Input user information and report output location. 6. Wait for scanning to complete and then view the report. Should the report not generate any results, rescanning, then using another steg analysis tool should yield the desired results. If not, the manual comparison needs to be done. In summation, steg analysis is a very difficult task to perform, especially if the file modifications are not known. In this case, running the files through a steg analysis tool would be the best option should the investigator lack the skill required to compare the files manually. An examiner's guide is a very important tool in writing reports for a digital forensic examiner. After researching several writing guides for digital forensic examiners, the outstanding quality they all shared was that they all require a plan. Sitting down to just start writing a report is never a promising idea, as the writer could forget pertinent details that could change the result or perception of the report. Therefore, the number one rule to developing a formal writing guide for forensic examiners in a company is to create it as a methodical plan. Guides, like plans, are developed over time, so the first draft is rarely a winner, but hitting all the points should be something to be strived for. There are three main types of reports digital forensic examiners are expected to write: preliminary reports, formal reports, and an examination plan. Identifying the goal of each report is necessary to give the audience an idea of what is to be accomplished within the writing. Adding explanations for technical verbiage may be necessary if the audience is not familiar with some of the verbiage. Conveying an opinion to an audience is accepted, but must also be adequately and logically supported. In addition, the style of writing has an impact. Writing in first and third person both have their advantages, but professionalism usually hinges on writing in the third person. Developing a writing guide should follow steps similar to writing a book, i.e., contain an abstract, table of contents, body, conclusion, references, glossary, acknowledgments, appendix, etc. With a structured, methodical guide like that, diving into each section to develop the specifics will follow. Be sure to follow the 3 C's rule for maximum professionalism. The report should be clear, concise, and correct. This means each section should be clearly identified, it should be concise and not convoluted, and everything, including grammar, should be correct and not contain fictional information. The body of the report could be considered the most important part because it has the bulk of the information and the steps to how the conclusion was generated. This section should include information such as detailed explanation of the examination, collection methods, calculations, uncertainties, etc. It involves the most work in the report and therefore requires the most attention. No reports can be auto-generated by some forensic software. There is a certain level of reliability that needs to be considered before presenting one in court. If that route is taken, heavy user scrutiny should be exercised. There are also guides that follow a different structure but cover all the same information. Further breaking sections down will make it easier for readers to understand, such as identifying sections like the title, table of contents, case summary, evidence, objectives, forensic analysis, tools, findings, recommendations, and the appendix. Adding figures in their own section may also help readers. Regardless of the information layout, all reports need to be clear, concise, and correct. In summation, developing a writing guide for a forensic examiner's office is a feat that requires much research and preparation to make sure that all the points are covered clearly, concisely, and correctly. Having a plan of what to include will help developers further expand into each subject, ultimately strengthening the guide. Chronology is a good way to format the guide, but breaking the data up into their own sections so readers can quickly reference it is also a good advantage. Great writing guides aren't developed in one brainstorming session, but over time. In summary, there is a lot that goes into running a digital forensic examination office. It isn't just about the money, rather, it is about standards and the operations within the company that need to be considered as well. A solid understanding of technology is a hard requirement, as all digital objects are technology.